It was a quiet Sunday morning in Mayfield, a small town nestled in the heart of Georgia. The church bell rang loud and clear, calling families to worship. Children ran ahead of their parents, laughing and playing as they rushed through the doors of Grace Tabernacle Church. Pastor Elijah Boone, a respected figure in the town, stood at the entrance, greeting each member with a warm smile and a firm handshake. Among the crowd was the Miller family, John, his wife Marlene, and their 8-year-old son Cody. Cody was known in the town for his curious nature and boundless energy. He loved exploring and asking questions. That morning, he wore his favorite red baseball cap, his little hand holding tightly to his mom's as they entered the church. The service began as usual: hymns, prayers, and a fiery sermon from Pastor Boone about sin and salvation. Cody, restless as always, asked his mom for permission to go to the restroom. Marlene nodded and Cody slipped out of the pew and down the hallway. He never came back. At first, Marlene thought he had gotten distracted. Maybe he wandered into the Sunday school room or found another child to play with. But as minutes turned into an hour and the service ended, panic began to set in. The entire church searched for Cody. They checked every room, every closet, even the parking lot. He was nowhere. The police were called. Sheriff Donna Briggs led the initial investigation. The church was sealed off. Parents held their children close as fear swept through the town. "I've known Cody since he was a baby," Sheriff Briggs said in a press conference. "We will leave no stone unturned." Flyers with Cody's picture were posted all over town. News crews arrived. Volunteers formed search parties, combing through woods, checking abandoned buildings, and knocking on doors. Days turned into weeks, then months. Cody Miller had vanished without a trace. The town changed after that. Grace Tabernacle, once a place of joy, became a symbol of sorrow. Attendance dropped. People whispered. Some blamed the Miller family. Others suspected strangers. But no one had answers. 1 year later, the case went cold. That was until April 17th of the following year, when a strange smell began to rise from under the old wooden floorboards of the church's basement. A maintenance worker named Carl was fixing the water heater in the church basement when he noticed it, a foul, rotting odor. He thought it was a dead raccoon or maybe a busted pipe. But when he started pulling up floorboards near the wall, he found something he never expected: a small, decomposed body wrapped in a plastic tarp. A red baseball cap lay nearby. The police were called immediately. Forensics confirmed what everyone feared. It was Cody. Grace Tabernacle was sealed off as a crime scene. The entire town fell into shock once again. But this time, something was different. The case was no longer in the hands of Sheriff Briggs. It was turned over to a man known for solving the unsolvable, Detective Thomas Reyes. A seasoned homicide investigator from Atlanta, Reyes was quiet, methodical, and didn't like small talk. He had a reputation for digging deep, even when others stopped asking questions. When he arrived in Mayfield, he wore a long black coat and carried nothing but a worn-out leather notebook and a voice recorder. He stood outside the old church, looking at the fading paint and the sign that read, "Grace Tabernacle Church, all are welcome." Reyes scribbled in his notebook, then turned to the officers standing by the police tape. "I want every name, every adult who was in this building the day Cody disappeared. I want the guest logs, camera footage, service programs, sermon notes, everything," he said. As he entered the church, Reyes paused at the door. Something about the place felt off. The basement, where Cody's body had been hidden, was dark and narrow. Old boxes, dusty hymnals, and broken furniture were stacked against the walls. But the area near where Cody was found had been recently cleaned. Too clean. "There's no way this body was here a whole year without anyone noticing something," Reyes muttered. He bent down, pulled out his flashlight, and examined the floor. "The boards here, they were lifted before. Someone covered this back up," he whispered. He snapped photos, then stood and looked around. Why would someone kill a child and bury him under the house of God? He asked himself. That was the question that would drive the investigation forward. Little did Mayfield know, the truth was darker than anyone imagined, and Detective Reyes was about to uncover secrets buried far deeper than the basement. Detective Thomas Reyes sat in a small office inside the police station, the walls covered with photos of missing persons, suspects, and maps of the area. In the center of his whiteboard was Cody Miller's photo. Bright smile, red cap, full of life. Next to it was a photo of the decomposed body as it had been found, wrapped in plastic, curled up, and heartbreakingly small. Reyes had gone through the original case file all night. Something about it bothered him. There were too many assumptions, he muttered to himself. Too much trust. He requested the church guest list from the day Cody disappeared. Sheriff Briggs had taken down names, but the list wasn't complete. People came and went. No one questioned the pastor. He was respected, even loved. But Reyes didn't believe in untouchables. Detective Reyes arrived at Grace Tabernacle the next morning. The church was still roped off, and Pastor Elijah Boone was waiting outside with his arms folded. "Detective Reyes," he greeted. "I was told you wanted to speak with me." "Pastor Boone," Reyes said, shaking his hand. "Thank you for meeting me. We'll be brief." They walked into the sanctuary where sunlight spilled through stained glass windows, casting red and gold patterns on the pews. Reyes noticed how quiet it was, almost too quiet. "Let's talk about the day Cody disappeared," Reyes said. "I need you to walk me through everything, from the moment you saw him enter." Boone exhaled slowly. Cody came with his parents, the Millers, sat near the front as usual. The boy asked to use the restroom during the sermon. "I didn't see him after that." "No one noticed him leaving the sanctuary?" Reyes asked. Not that I remember." Reyes pulled out a photo. "Recognize this?" It was a blurry still frame from a security camera Sheriff Briggs had recovered a year ago. It showed a small figure, likely Cody, walking down the hallway near the basement entrance. "That hallway leads to the restrooms," Boone said. "And to the basement," Reyes added. Boone frowned. "That door is usually locked." "Usually," Reyes repeated. "But someone had a key." Pastor Boone's expression hardened slightly. "Are you suggesting I had something to do with this?" "I'm suggesting that someone in this building that day took Cody into that basement," Reyes said calmly, "and that someone hid his body under the floor." Boone stood. "Detective, I've been the pastor here for 22 years. I would never—" "I'm not accusing you," Reyes interrupted. "But I need access to everything. Church records, staff rosters, security logs, and a list of everyone who had a key to the basement." Boone hesitated, then nodded. "I'll have my secretary send them." Back at the station, Reyes received a list of church staff. There were 4 people with keys to the basement: Pastor Elijah Boone, Deacon Marcus Trent, Janitor Louise Kelly, Youth Minister Seth Harmon. Reyes decided to start with Louise Kelly. She was the church's longtime janitor, a widow in her 60s with a reputation for being quiet but observant. She agreed to meet Reyes at the station. "I clean the basement once a week," she said, sitting across from him, hands clasped tightly. "But I never go near the back wall. Too many spiders." "Do you remember anything strange from the day Cody disappeared?" Reyes asked. Louise squinted, thinking hard. "Now that you mention it, I saw the youth minister, Seth, near the basement during service. Said he heard a noise. I thought it was odd, but I didn't think much of it." Reyes made a note. "Did Seth have any reason to be down there? Number his class was upstairs that day?" Reyes leaned forward. "Did anyone else see him?" Louise nodded. "One of the kids, Emma Daniels. She said she saw Seth talking to Cody outside the Sunday school room that morning. Seth Harmon was 28, clean-cut, and friendly. He volunteered at the church 5 days a week and was popular with the teenagers. Reyes invited him to the station for a talk. Seth seemed nervous, his hands fidgeting in his lap. "Cody was a good kid," he said quickly. "I can't believe what happened." "You were seen talking to him that morning," Reyes said. "What was that about?" "Oh, yeah. He was lost, I think, looking for the restroom. I pointed him in the right direction," Seth replied. "Near the basement?" Reyes asked. Seth paused. I guess. They're close." Reyes tilted his head. "You were seen entering the basement that same morning." I thought I heard something. Like a crash. Went to check. It was probably nothing." Reyes stared at him. "Why didn't you mention this during the initial investigation?" Seth rubbed his face. I don't know. I didn't think it mattered. Did you see Cody in the basement? Reyes asked softly. Seth looked up sharply. No! God! No! Reyes didn't respond. He just wrote something in his notebook. That evening, Reyes returned to the church alone. He walked down the creaky steps into the basement and turned on his flashlight. The crime scene tape still marked the area where Cody was found. Reyes crouched down and examined the corner again. Then he noticed something. There was a small wooden shelf on the far wall, dusty and covered in cobwebs. But behind it, hidden in the shadows, was something unusual, a piece of cloth. He pulled the shelf aside and found a small child's hoodie, partially buried in dust. It matched the one Cody had been wearing the day he vanished, and it was stained with what looked like blood. Someone tried to hide this, Reyes whispered. He bagged the hoodie and stood slowly. His eyes scanned the basement. Then he noticed something else. Scratches on the back of a wooden beam. Faint, almost invisible. But they were there, like tiny fingernail marks. Reyes felt a chill run down his spine. Cody had been alive for a while. Someone had left him down here, locked away, and someone had come back to make sure he never left. Detective Thomas Reyes barely slept that night. The image of the child's hoodie and the faint scratch marks haunted him. Cody Miller hadn't just been hidden. He had been left, alive. The basement wasn't just a dumping ground. It was a prison, a slow death sentence. And someone in that church had locked the door behind them. Reyes returned to the station before sunrise. He placed the hoodie in an evidence bag and called the forensics lab for a rush analysis. The blood would likely match Cody's, but he needed confirmation. He also wanted to know if there were any other DNA traces, hairs, fibers, skin cells, anything that could point to the person who had been with Cody in that basement. While he waited, he reopened the old interviews from a year ago. There was something strange about how quickly the case had gone cold, how no one remembered anything important. It felt scripted, like the truth had been swept under the church rug. He remembered what the janitor, Louise, had said about the young girl, Emma Daniels. She'd seen Seth Harmon talking to Cody that morning. Reyes requested the Daniels family's address and drove across town to a quiet suburb. Emma was now 13, quiet and bright-eyed. Her mother greeted him at the door. Detective Reyes? I didn't think the police were still working Cody's case. Reyes nodded. We are now. May I speak with Emma for a few minutes? Emma sat at the kitchen table, hugging a pillow. Her eyes were cautious but curious. Emma, Reyes said gently, a year ago you told someone you saw Mr. Seth talking to Cody before service started. Do you remember that day? She nodded slowly. Yes. Can you tell me exactly what you saw? Emma hesitated. Cody looked lost, like he didn't know where to go. Mr. Seth said he'd help him. They went toward the back hall. Did you follow? I was curious, she admitted. So I walked behind them, real quiet. Mr. Seth told Cody to wait for him by the basement stairs. Then he went into a room. What happened next? I heard someone calling for me, so I ran back upstairs. I didn't see Cody again. Reyes leaned in. Emma, this is important. Did you see anyone else go into the basement that day? She shook her head. But what? Emma bit her lip. A week later, I heard Mr. Seth telling someone in the hallway that the cameras were broken, and it was probably best not to ask questions. I thought he was joking, but it sounded serious. Reyes returned to the station and called for the full security footage from Grace Tabernacle. What little had been saved. Most of it was from the sanctuary and the outside entrances. The hallway cameras near the basement had been malfunctioning that day, according to the original report. He reviewed the technician's notes. The camera wire had been cut, not a malfunction. He called in Seth Harmon for a second interview. This time, Reyes wasn't going to play nice. Seth arrived, looking more tense than before. We need to go over a few things, Reyes said, motioning him to sit. You told me last time that you heard a noise and went to check the basement. Seth nodded. Yeah. You also said you pointed Cody to the restroom. Seth swallowed. Right. Reyes slid a photo across the table. It was a screenshot of the hallway camera, the one that had been cut. This camera was disabled. Someone didn't want it recording. That happened right before Cody disappeared. Know anything about that? Seth blinked. No. Why would I? I also have a witness who saw you direct Cody toward that hallway, and another who heard you talking about the camera afterward. Seth leaned back in the chair. His face had gone pale. Are you saying I killed that boy? I'm saying you know more than you've admitted. A lot more. And the longer you hide it, the worse it gets. Seth's eyes darted around the room. I didn't kill him, he said, voice cracking. I swear. I found him crying near the basement. He was scared. Said someone yelled at him and he didn't know where his parents were. I told him to wait, that I'd find help. I left. I came back 5 minutes later and he was gone. Why didn't you report that? Reyes asked. Because I was afraid. The pastor said we had to be careful. Protect the image of the church. He said if anything happened on church grounds, people would lose faith. Reyes stared hard at him. Are you saying Pastor Boone told you to cover up a missing child? I'm saying he knew Cody was missing before the service ended, but he told everyone to stay calm and not cause panic. The pastor's silence. Reyes left the station furious. If Seth was telling the truth, the pastor had withheld critical information. That was obstruction. He returned to the church where Boone was in his office, speaking to another deacon. Reyes waited until they were alone, then closed the door behind him. Why didn't you tell anyone Cody was missing during the service? Boone looked up slowly. I don't know what you're talking about. Seth Harmon said you were told during service and decided to say nothing, that you didn't want panic. Boone's face tightened. You're taking the word of a scared young man who's clearly in over his head. I'm taking the word of someone who admits he saw the boy alive and told you. That makes you responsible for the delay that cost Cody his life. Boone stood. You want a villain, detective? Try the janitor. She's always in that basement. She cleans it, locks it. Maybe she saw something, or did something. She told me Seth was down there, not her, Reyes said. You're pointing fingers. That tells me you're hiding something. Boone's eyes narrowed. You don't understand this town, detective. People don't like seeing their leaders dragged through the mud. I don't care about your image, Reyes replied coldly. I care about a dead child buried under your church. As Reyes left, he knew one thing for certain. More than one person was lying, and soon someone would break. Detective Thomas Reyes sat in his car outside Grace Tabernacle Church, watching families trickle in for Wednesday evening service. From the outside, the church still looked like a place of peace. A small-town refuge with white wooden siding, tall windows and a cross standing proudly on the front lawn. But now Reyes knew, beneath the stained glass and hymns, something dark had been buried. Literally. Cody Miller had been found under the church basement. Seth Harmon had admitted to sending Cody that way, and then conveniently forgetting to report it. Pastor Boone had lied about not knowing, and the janitor, Louise, who had discovered the body, had told Reyes she thought something was off about Seth. But Reyes knew better than to take any single story at face value, especially not in a case where everyone suddenly remembered things after the body turned up. The forensics report arrives the next morning. Reyes received the full forensics report. The hoodie recovered from the basement did contain Cody's DNA and someone else's. Male. Not Seth. Not Boone. Unknown. Even more disturbing was what they found under Cody's fingernails. Traces of white cloth and blood. Not his own. Reyes immediately requested DNA comparisons from every staff member and volunteer at the church. The report also noted bruises on Cody's arms consistent with restraint. He had likely been tied up at some point. There were no signs of blunt trauma or strangulation, which supported the theory that he had died from dehydration or suffocation. Slow, isolated, painful. Reyes returned to the basement for another inspection. This time he brought a search team. They started tapping the concrete walls looking for inconsistencies. One area behind the boiler gave off a hollow sound. With Boone refusing access without a warrant, Reyes obtained one from the judge by noon. They broke through the panel behind the boiler and discovered a hidden crawl space. Inside was a small, dark room. The floor was covered in old blankets. One plastic cup. No light. No window. just a single Bible lying on the floor. Written inside the front cover was the name, Pastor Nathaniel Boone. Reyes took photos, then bagged the Bible for evidence. Now it was more than a murder. It was a cover-up. Confronting Boone again, Reyes marched back to the pastor's office and laid the Bible on the desk. This was in the crawl space behind your boiler, the one you never mentioned. Boone looked at it and then up at Reyes. His voice was low. That Bible belonged to my son. He died years ago. I stored it there. I didn't want to look at it. Your son died in that crawl space? No, Boone snapped. He died in a car crash. The crawl space was a storage room I sealed up long ago. Reyes narrowed his eyes. You sealed up a room, then forgot about it, while a boy died in it? I didn't know he was in there, Boone said, his face red now. Why would I hide a child in a sealed-off room? Reyes pointed to the evidence photo. Because someone used it. There are fresh fingerprints, blankets from this year. Cody wasn't killed randomly. He was placed in there. And whoever did it didn't do it alone. Boone sat back down, shaking his head. You're accusing a man of God. I'm accusing a man who keeps secrets. Later that afternoon, Reyes received a surprise call. Mrs. Evelyn Marks, a former choir leader and church elder who hadn't spoken to police during the original investigation, wanted to meet privately. They sat in her sunroom surrounded by plants and gospel CDs. I didn't speak up before because I was scared, Evelyn said softly. But now that you've found that poor boy, I can't hold it in. Reyes leaned forward. Go ahead, ma'am. A week before Cody disappeared, I overheard an argument. Pastor Boone and Deacon Markley. Boone was yelling at him, saying, I told you not to let that boy come here again. He knows too much. Reyes raised his brow. Knows too much about what? I don't know, but I saw Boone slip that boy money once, and I saw Cody crying in the hallway the week before he vanished. You saw Boone pay Cody? Yes. I thought maybe Cody was poor. But now, I don't know. And then Cody vanished. And just like that, we were told not to speculate, that the boy probably ran off. Did you report this to anyone? Evelyn shook her head. The church is powerful in this town, detective. Boone baptized every mayor for the last 30 years. He's got his fingers in every pie. But I can't live with this anymore. Reyes thanked her and left. It was now clear. Cody had a secret, a dangerous one, and someone in the church wanted it buried with him. Back at the station, Reyes dug into the church's volunteer list and found something odd. One man stood out, Deacon Markley. He had left the church 3 weeks after Cody disappeared. No reason, no public statement, just disappeared from the records. Reyes tracked him down to a trailer park outside town. When he arrived, Markley tried to shut the door in his face, but Reyes wedged his foot in. I just want to talk. I've got nothing to say, Markley said. What happened to Cody? Markley froze. I don't know. You argued with Boone about him. Evelyn heard you. The man sank into a chair, breathing hard. I didn't kill him. Who did? Markley stared at the ground. It was an accident. Boone didn't mean for it to go that far. Reyes waited. Cody saw something. Boone was meeting with a woman, not his wife. Cody had been sneaking around after Sunday school. He saw them kissing in the basement. Boone paid him to keep quiet. And when Cody came back, Boone panicked, told Seth to keep him distracted while he figured out what to do. He told me later that he just wanted to scare the kid. Lock him up till after the service, then talk to him again. But then he forgot. Just forgot. Forgot. He never checked. Cody died. He made Seth seal the room, told him to keep quiet, made me quit the church. Reyes was quiet for a moment. Then he said, You're going to repeat all of that in court. The following morning, Detective Reyes arrived early at the station with a new purpose. Deacon Markley's quiet confession had opened the door. Now it was time to step through it. Reyes placed a call to the district attorney's office and scheduled an immediate meeting. Within hours, an official order was issued. Arrest Pastor Nathaniel Boone and Seth Harmon, the youth leader. By noon, a pair of squad cars rolled up quietly to Grace Tabernacle Church. Boone was in his office preparing for Bible study. Seth was restocking paper towels in the youth hall. Neither resisted, but the town noticed. People began gathering outside the station, whispering and holding each other. It was no longer just a missing person case. It was betrayal. A church leader now accused of killing a child. Reyes could feel the weight of every eye in town pressing against the windows of the interrogation room. The interrogation begins. Pastor Boone sat across from Reyes, dressed in a gray suit, collar still stiff, jaw tight. For a moment he said nothing, just stared at the tape recorder Reyes had placed on the table. Reyes started calmly. "We found Cody's body under your church. We found a crawl space sealed behind your boiler. Your Bible was in that crawl space. His blood is under his fingernails. The janitor saw Seth lead him down there. Evelyn Marks heard you arguing with Markley about Cody, and Markley says you told him to." Carlos Reyes, who had spent months digging into secrets the town had tried to ignore. The district attorney, Sharon McCabe, rose first. Dressed in navy blue and speaking with calm confidence, she addressed the jury. "Ladies and gentlemen, this case is about trust. Trust that was broken in the worst way possible. Cody Miller, a young boy with a bright smile and a love for baseball, walked into Grace Tabernacle Church seeking hope. Instead, he found fear and eventually death. Pastor Boone used his authority to silence a child and then left him to die. We will prove that this was no accident. This was a choice, a deliberate act of cruelty." Boone's defense attorney, a sharp man from Atlanta named Clarence Ford, stood next. "This is a tragedy. No one denies that. But Nathaniel Boone is not a killer. He is a man of God who made a mistake in trusting others around him. The prosecution will try to make him the face of evil, but we ask that you look deeper. Look at the chaos, the confusion, and the lies that swirl around this church. We believe the truth is more complicated than the story you're about to hear." One by one, the prosecution brought out witnesses. First, Evelyn Marks, the former church secretary. "I heard them arguing, Boone and Markley. They were whispering about the boy and how they had to make it disappear. At the time, I didn't understand. I thought it was just gossip. I never imagined it meant Cody." Second, Deacon Markley, who had agreed to testify in exchange for a lighter sentence. "I helped seal the room. I didn't know the boy was still in there. Boone said it was just to scare him, that he'd let him out later. I never checked. I regret it every day." Third, Seth Harmon, the youth leader. His voice was shaking. "I led Cody to the boiler room. I told him Pastor wanted to talk to him. When we got there, Boone was waiting. He told me to close the panel. I thought it was just a punishment, but we never went back. I never heard Cody's voice again." Detective Reyes took the stand next, laying out the evidence. Cody's DNA found in the crawlspace. Fingerprints of Seth and Boone on the interior panel. The bloody hoodie buried nearby. Boone's personal Bible left behind in the corner of the hidden room, with a note inside that read, "He knew too much." "I've worked in law enforcement for 17 years, Reyes said. "I've seen a lot, but this was different. This was a place of worship turned into a crime scene." The defense tries to shift blame. Clarence Ford cross-examined each witness, trying to poke holes. To Seth, "You're the one who shut the door, aren't you?" To Markley, "You sealed the crawl space. Did Boone force you?" To Reyes, "Did you find any direct footage or recordings of Boone giving the order?" Ford argued that this was a case of negligence, that Boone may have known about Cody's presence, but never meant for him to die. He painted Boone as a misguided leader, overwhelmed and misled by the people around him. But the jury wasn't buying it. Lisa Miller's testimony. The courtroom fell silent as Cody's mother took the stand. Her voice was steady. "My son trusted that church. He used to say Pastor Boone was like a superhero. He looked up to him. And now I have to bury a child who died crying in the dark, while the people who were supposed to protect him led him to that place and turned their backs." She held up a small bracelet, Cody's favorite one, blue with tiny baseballs. "This is all I have left of him." No one in the courtroom could speak. Closing arguments. D.A. McCabe summed it up. "This wasn't a mistake. It was a cover-up. Cody became a problem, and instead of acting with compassion, they acted with fear. They silenced him, permanently, and for that, justice must be served." The defense offered a final plea. We are not saying Cody's death isn't tragic, but we ask you, was it murder? Or was it a chain of bad decisions made by flawed people? Don't let grief cloud the law. The verdict. After 2 days of deliberation, the jury returned. The courtroom held its breath. On the charge of second-degree murder, we find the defendant, Pastor Nathaniel Boone, guilty. On the charge of unlawful imprisonment, guilty. On the charge of negligent homicide, guilty. Boone's face hardened. Seth Harmon wept quietly in the corner. Outside, the town of Little Pines stood still as the news broke. Justice had come, but at a cost no one would forget. The sun rose over Little Pines, Georgia, casting a quiet light over a town still shaken by what had come to light. Grace Tabernacle Church stood in eerie silence, its doors chained shut. A large notice from the county prosecutor's office taped across the glass. Under criminal investigation, do not enter. The cross above the bell tower now seemed less a symbol of faith and more a reminder of betrayal. But for Detective Carlos Reyes, there was still one thing left to do: finish the final case report. On February 5, 2025, 11-year-old Cody Miller was reported missing by his mother, Lisa Miller. Last seen at Grace Tabernacle Church, Cody's disappearance initially yielded no suspects or leads. Over the next several weeks, increased pressure from the public and media led to the reopening of several closed files involving the church and allegations of misconduct. Suspicion fell on church leadership, particularly Pastor Nathaniel Boone. On March 14, 2025, the body of Cody Miller was discovered beneath the church in a sealed crawl space behind the basement wall. Forensics determined the boy died from asphyxiation, likely after being trapped in the space without ventilation or light. Estimated time of death was within 24 hours of disappearance. Cody was found curled in a fetal position, hands clasped as if in prayer, wearing the same outfit described by his mother. The discovery was made after inconsistencies in statements led to a full search order of the premises. Suspects and charges. Nathaniel Boone, pastor, charged and convicted of second-degree murder, unlawful imprisonment, and negligent homicide. Deacon Markley, head of facilities, testified under immunity agreement, admitted to sealing the crawl space upon Boone's direction. Seth Harmon, youth leader, convicted of obstruction of justice and contributing to unlawful imprisonment. Sentenced to 8 years. Boone discovered Cody overheard a conversation between church leaders about hush money paid to silence prior abuse allegations. Cody was considered a threat to the church's image. Boone, with Harmon's help, lured Cody into the basement under the pretense of prayer and guidance. Boone locked him inside the crawl space with the intent to scare him into silence, but never returned. Witnesses confirmed Boone had done similar acts of intimidation with other youth in the past, though never to this extent. Evidence shows Boone never intended to kill, but his failure to check on Cody resulted in death by slow suffocation. The town. Little Pines is grieving, divided, and changed forever. The church has lost nearly all of its congregation. Candlelight vigils were held for Cody, and memorial murals appeared on buildings and alley walls. Justice for Cody became both a slogan and a painful reminder. Lisa Miller, Cody's mother, has since relocated to Atlanta. She created the Cody's Light Foundation, aimed at investigating abuse and cover-ups in faith institutions. The foundation has received national attention and is working with lawmakers on reform legislation. The church, Grace Tabernacle, will be demolished. The land has been donated back to the county. Discussions are underway to build a children's reading and learning center in Cody's honor. The system. This case triggered investigations into other churches in Georgia suspected of concealing crimes. A state task force has been formed, and Reyes was asked to consult due to his handling of the Cody Miller investigation. This case was not about religion. It was about power and the people who use it to hide their wrongdoings. Cody Miller died because adults failed him, but he also changed something. He reminded us that truth can be buried but not erased. We owe it to him to never forget. As Reyes finished typing his last word, He leaned back in his chair, staring at the evidence board for the final time. Cody's photo, bright smile, baseball cap turned backward, looked back at him from the center of it all. He reached for the thumbtack, took the picture down, and carefully slipped it into a manila envelope marked "Closed Case. Justice served." Then he stepped out of his office, took a long breath, and let the morning light carry him forward.